Slope describes the rate of change of a line. Just stick it in there. Right now, we need to concentrate on getting this done. So put that over here, and we'll deal with that in a few minutes, okay? A pencil is in a cup over there. Okay? It's also known as unit rate, okay, or the steepness of a line. Now, if your teacher called it slope last year, then that's a nice thing, because you basically know it as rate of change. It's not part of 7th grade to know it as slope. Okay? To find slope, we use rise over run, or the change in y over the change in x. We also have a formula, and on your algebra mathematics chart, and your 8th grade, but your algebra mathematics chart has a formula for slope, I believe, right here. Under linear equations, slope of a line, you use this formula. And what that says is m represents slope. We'll get into that. y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. You can find slope from 2 coordinate points. Okay? So what we're going to do, we're going to put up here y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. All right? And what I'm going to do out here is I'm going to write m equals. And m is slope. It is the representative of slope. Yes. Okay? We're going to talk about from a graph and from an equation today. So from a graph, which is right this column right here, and I'm going to zero in just a little bit. Okay? All right. You choose 2 points on the graph. When you choose points on the graph, you have to make sure that it is in the crosshairs. Does anybody understand what I'm saying? Yes. Okay, in other words, where this line is crossing this line, right here where they cross, but they has to be on your line that you're trying to find slope. You cannot choose a point in the middle, all right? That will not work. So what I'm going to choose here is I'm going to choose this point right here, and I'm going to choose this point right here. It says count the rise. Remember this. You have to get out of bed before you can run. So you rise out of bed before you can run to breakfast, right? So rise over run. You always rise first. So you count the rise from one point to the next, then the run. Never go sideways first, even when it's a negative slope. All right, and I will explain to you about all of that in a little bit. Write the slope as y over x, or the rise over the run. Okay? So what I'm going to do right now is I am going to draw the rise. Dariana, you're leaving. The rise over the run. Okay? So I have drawn a path, and essentially you are drawing a right triangle. Does everybody see that? You draw a right triangle. So if I count from here, and I want to count my rise, I'm going to count 1, 2. So my rise over my run, my rise is 2. Dariana, here's your work for tonight. There'll be a video posted, but probably not until 5 or so. It's taken a long time to upload them at home, okay? So my rise is 2, And then I'm going to go over one line, so I'm counting 1, and that's 2 over 1, which simplifies to a slope of 2. Is this familiar to you? Okay. How many of you did this last year? Good. Okay. All right, so let's look at B. And we're going to write rise over run. I'm going to pick my 2 points. Now, if your line goes up from left to right, what type of slope is it? Positive or negative? It's positive. So you can remember this. It goes up, it's positive. If it starts over here, it goes down, then it's negative. So the first thing I want to do is write a negative sign because that's the number one thing students forget to do. Then I have to pick 2 points. I'm going to pick here, and it doesn't matter if I pick there and there. I could pick here and here, but those are the only 3 points on this line, and I might do it in color so you can even see it better, that would work. There is no other place on this line that I could count slope from. And then you're going to draw your path, but you're always going to draw rise and then your run. And the reason that I know this is a negative slope, another reason is because I'm having to draw to the left. Okay, so I'm going up and left, which is negative, instead of up and right, which is positive. Okay, so I'm going to count up 1. So my rise is 1. And my run is 1, 2, 3. So my run is 3, and I get negative 1/3. Okay, so not too bad, right? Pretty easy. So up, left to right is positive slope. Down, left to right is negative slope. And in algebra, we're going to learn about no slope and zero slope. Sorry. Okay. How many of you know what the parts of a linear equation is? How many, if I gave you this, could tell me what y represents? M, X, B. Alrighty, see, we can learn something new. The equation must, so from an equation, this equation must be in slope-intercept form. And in algebra, you're going to see equations eventually that are in other forms other than slope-intercept. Okay? So slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. And the reason we call that slope-intercept form is because I can tell you just from, if there were numbers in that equation, I would be able to tell you what the slope is and what the y-intercept is, just by looking at the equation. Okay? And you will be able to do that also. Slope is the coefficient. Does anybody know what the word coefficient means? It works together is a good way to think about it. The coefficient of x, what's right next to x? What letter? And remember I said up here, m is slope. So m represents slope. So we're going to write m represents slope. Okay? So in the equation, m represents your slope. So it's pretty easy to look at these equations. If I was to go here and look at A, m is equal to, well, what's right next to your variable x? 4 over 3. So 4 over 3 is your slope. Oops, sorry. It's because sometimes when I get my hand there, it gets out of focus. Just, you know, it's kind of a crazy machine. There we go. Okay? So B. M is equal to, what's my slope going to be here? -3. You always bring the sign. So -3. C. What's my slope? 15. Okay? And it doesn't always have to be an X. This is just representing a variable. It could say C, it could say D, it could say a lot of different things. But y equals mx plus b is the form that a slope-intercept linear equation looks like. Okay? So what about here? Negative 0.1, correct. It's actually 1/10, yes. What if I had something like, what's my slope there? 1, not x. X is your variable, it's only 1. It is the coefficient of x. Okay? Let's talk about the y-intercept. Flip the page. We're only going to look at a graph and an equation today. All right? The y-intercept. Remember, you have a y-axis and you have an x-axis. Okay? Sorry. In that equation, y equals mx plus b. Okay? If this is your slope, okay, I need something that'll write a little bit smaller. This is your variable. Okay. Y always represents some form of a total, or what this equation equals. I like to use the word total, and I don't know why this is not auto-focusing. Because whatever this comes together and equals, that's what y is. Y is your total. And then this plus b part can actually be plus or minus b, because you might have a negative number, all right, as your y-intercept, but that represents your y-intercept. And what is the y-intercept? It is where the line crosses the y-axis. Okay? So in this instance, if this is my y-axis and this is my x-axis, it says find the y-axis. Free to put your finger on it, highlight it, do whatever you want to do. Find the point where the line goes through the y-axis. Write the y value of that point, not the x value. You're not writing the whole point. In other words, the point here is actually at 0, -1. That is the point. We don't want to know what the point is. We want to know what the y value is when that line crosses the y-axis, and that is -1. So your b is equal to -1. That's your y-intercept. And that will become really important, all right, eventually here. And the last thing we're going to talk about today is, we've kind of covered it when I did that on the top. So if I was to write from an equation, y equals mx plus b. Remember, that's the slope-intercept form of a linear equation. Okay? What does linear mean? Straight line. Okay? So we're only talking about straight line equations. All right? Then here, my slope is what? Slope is your m, -4. What is your y-intercept? -6 is b, and b is what represents your y-intercept. Help you with what? Okay. I know this is a little early, but I'm going to just... Everybody okay? Okay. All right. This is called your linear parent function is y equals x. If you don't have a y-intercept, in other words, I told you that your y-intercept was b, correct? So, if you have y equals x instead of y equals mx plus b, well, you still have an m here because it's just 1. So I'll rewrite that as y equals mx. It's the same thing, okay? All right? So what I'm saying here is that you don't have that y-intercept is 0. Do you see where I'm crossing the y-axis? At 0. So anytime you don't have a plus or minus b on your equation, it just means that you are passing through the origin. Okay? And we won't need too much of that, but I just kind of want to show that. We need to get really familiar with these equations. If you have a y-intercept, then that moves your parent function up or down, and you're going to get real familiar, so don't think I'm talking terms that I expect you to completely understand right now. It's just the more I say them, the more you see them, the more they will make sense, okay? Here's a challenge question. If this is my linear parent function, meaning I have a, what do I have a slope? If I have an equation that says y equals x, what's my slope? 1 is correct. All right? So, because watch, I take any point on this line, and I'm going up 1, over 1, up 1, over 1, up 1, over 1. Do you see that? So my slope is 1. Pretty cool, huh? And you can relate a lot of these things to a lot of stuff that you're going to become familiar with. Now, you will use algebra in life, I promise you. If I went this way, which is harder for me to draw, but I'm gonna, and you don't have to put this on your graph. It's just kind of getting interesting here, because since somebody knew what my slope was there. So now I'm going to tell you this. What is my slope here? What? Who said that? -1, correct. Okay, so this is y equals -x. Okay, it's pretty cool. Okay, it's cool that you could even know that. I love that. All right, let's see if I need to oh, I know what. We can talk about one more thing before we finish here. We can talk about what a... If I tell you I need you to draw me a line for x equals 4, where would you draw that line? X equals 4. Where does x equal 4? On the x-axis at 4, right? So if I drew a line, that's the line of x equals 4. And that is known as an defined slope. If I ask you to draw me a line, y equals -5. Ooh, cool, huh? I can go down to where y equals -5, draw a line, and if I have a horizontal line, do I have a slope? I can't do rise over run, can I? So guess what? Now I have a horizontal line. And the reason I say horizontal is because it will help you remember horizontal means 0 slope. And there is an O for 0 in horizontal. Okay? So you have 0 slope. Anyways, those are a little extra stuff for today that you really don't need to know, but I'm always dying to talk about because we'll get there and it's so much fun. I love algebra. It is an awesome, awesome thing. So all you're going to have is this paper. Finding the slope and the y-intercept from a graph. So you're going to have to plot rise over run. You're going to need to leave your slope. Are you listening? In your simplest form. So in other words, if I was to find, and let's say I wanted to draw from here to here, and I went up, and I went all the way over, and I went up, so this is slope 1, 2, 3, 4, and I went across 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If I left my answer at 4, 6, is that the simplest form? It needs to say 2/3. Okay? Then the y-intercept is what? 0. Okay? Don't write the point 0, 0. It is 0, what the y value is. Next, you're going to flip the page. This is going to be easy peasy, people. Same thing, graphs, all right? Then you're going to come over here. It'll go really fast. I promise you it will go fast. All you got to do is look at this equation. What's the slope? So I would get inhabit. M is 4. What's the y-intercept? B is equal to 2. Okay? Next page, same thing. Slope is what? 7/3. Intercept? 5. What are you going to tell me here? What's your slope? 0 slope. There you go. Okay? Because it's only a y. You're only going across the y-axis. That if this is your axis and you only have a y equals, you're going across this way. That is a horizontal line. It's a 0 slope. And my y-intercept is -4. Easy peasy. It'll go really quick. I promise. You can start now. I always suggest